Hello, I'm Kassi and I'm a counsellor and an intuitive artist, and I'm based up in Scotland. I just wanted to just take a few minutes and try and explain a little bit about what I do. I love my work, one-to-one groups. I see people in here one-to-one for therapy using art, and that's a very specific process that I've created. And I also sit face-to-face in my consulting room and do counselling in that way. And I also have groups in here, and we do specific things, like we might paint ourselves as a tree, which often makes people laugh when I suggest they come and paint themselves as a tree. However, it's a great process, and I put this together about 2008, whilst I was still in the NHS, and I ran lots of groups in lots and lots of little village halls all over the area. For mainly who came were counsellors, nurses, a couple of psychologists, doctors, and it's gone really well. The whole process can be done either in a day, or it can be done over a 6-week period. And when I do it online, I provide a space for a year, and people can dip in and out and do it as they wish, self-paced. But most people, once they begin, they become so immersed in the process that they don't want to leave their painting. They can't wait to come back in the next day and be reunited with their painting as it stands. And each step of the way there's a certain process that we go through. So each stage, each of the 6 stages, offers so much in terms of personal growth and painting. And at the end of the day, we end up with a tree, and that tree speaks of who we are. This is one of my trees. This tree was, I'm trying to think when, possibly 3 years ago, I painted this tree. And this tree is all about my relationship with my grandmother. Okay, so this is a tree of my life, and it came into being about 3 years ago. So it's very outdated, this tree, although when I look at it, I see everything that is underneath all the layers, where I began. It's all there for me in my memory. I remember everything really about this process, which took a number of weeks. And I began by writing. I wrote the story of my beginning on this board. And at the time when I began, I didn't know what it was going to be about. I just began work and began creating. And so I began by writing words on here, and I don't know if you can see this is a twig. There's a long twig about 10 inches long here. That twig I attached with a gel medium, it's like a glue, and didn't know why, but it felt important to do so. I attached the twig and then sprinkled some seeds. I got some seeds out of a poppy head, and I sprinkled the seeds on top of the gel medium, so the seeds stuck to the gel medium. And that here I'd written something about we all have a beginning. As I was exploring, because I can work with myself the way I work with others, but this actually is about conception. So I'm hoping that this is helping somehow to explain a little bit about what I do, and how whatever we create will speak of ourself, our life, whatever it is we're exploring, because we can bring an issue to explore, or we can simply work intuitively in the moment with no intention. And that's how I produced this particular painting. This is just like looking in a mirror and saying, this is me, this is who I am. And there was a stormy time, which was my teenage time, and it got quite dark over here. And at one point I had more than one tree. I had a few trees, and they were different people in my family. But as I worked, me and my grandmother remained, and I worked through lots of the relationship through the painting, and then that faded into the distance, and I let go of my grandmother. She's passed on now. As I was working, I realised that actually I'm on my own. I stand alone. I am an individual. And I really liked the way my trunk looked. My trunk has lots of detail. I don't know if you can see all the detail in here, but that's a collaged trunk. And really that just speaks of my creativity, because there's so much, so much goes on inside of me, so many ideas, and I do lots of different things, and that really is a mirror of that. The thing that remained for me was, I don't know if you can see this, it's like cupped hands, and there is a button, actually. I put a button in the cupped hands, and this bird, black, like a crow over here. And I'm the bird. I didn't know this at the time, but I'm the bird. And the cupped hands are all about somebody asking for forgiveness. And it was an offering, offering me this button in a way of asking for forgiveness to the bird. And there's a lot of work went on over here, lots and lots and lots of work, lots of layers. And I really found a great deal of growth through this experience, through this relationship that I explored. And somehow I could not bring myself to cover it over. I wanted it to remain seen. And it felt very important that I never forget. Yes, okay, I'll forgive, but I'll never forget. And that's very, very key for me to remember. And that informs me in a lot of my day-to-day living, the way I am. It's very key. I don't want to go into too much detail here, but there's this huge amount of work gone into that. So then the tree appeared. That's how I was back then. An owl swooping through the branches over here. So the owl and the fox, they're very vigilant, very, very observant. They don't miss much. That speaks of as me today, mainly in my work, because I like to notice things. I don't like to miss people or miss things. They're really important for me. If you can see that face and the baby in the arms of this woman who looks very at peace and relaxed, and that is me as a baby and my grandmother, because this is what this was all about. I don't know if you can see that, that's an actual autumn leaf that I've attached there. And I've just added some paint to sort of preserve it really. But yes, this is myself as a baby, my gran, and there's a tiny little bird sitting on her shoulder, and the two wings, because she's passed, so I gave her two angel wings. So I've probably said far too much now. I could continue about the inner critic, because that was my critic popping up right there, because we do a lot of work on the inner critic as we're working. But I'm going to leave it at that and hope that somehow this has explained a little about what I do when I invite you to come and paint yourself as a tree.